You're in tune to the FuseBox radio broadcast.
Turn the music up inside my session. These folks gotta hear my message.
Bringing balanced black radio to the masses.
Alright, everybody, 1 2 1 2, what's going on? You're now in tune to a brand new session of the syndicated worldwide FuseBox radio broadcast, bringing the balance back to black radio since 1998. Whether it's on your FM dial, podcast app, and more, you can check out what's going on with us at FuseboxRadio.com, www.FuseboxRadio.com. Our social media, the vast majority of it ends with /Fusebox Radio, so you can go and check us out. Twitter.com/Fusebox Radio, Instagram.com/Fusebox Radio, so forth and so on. This is DJ Fusion. I'm giving y'all a special episode of the show this week that is based off of the audio from this year's DC Podfest diversity panel. Not all podcasters are white. I moderated the panel, and we had the two awesome co-hosts of the Black Unconscious podcast be a part of the mix this year. So y'all definitely go on ahead and check them out. We got their website link in our show notes and all of that good stuff. And of course, thanks as always to the folks over at DC Podfest for having us. You can check out their programming for this year and beyond at their official website, dcpodfest.com. And we're going to go ahead and keep it moving here. This is the DC Podfest panel. Not all podcasters are white 2018. That was held in the Spaces building over in Arlington, VA. So sit back, relax, and enjoy. All right. Peace.
Hey everybody, so we are back again. This morning has been powerful. I know I walked away with some amazing content. I bet you have too. So we're not done yet. After this wonderful panel, we're going to have lunch and we can kind of catch our breath and come back for some more good stuff. So this is the diversity panel. Not all podcasters are white, thank goodness. No offense meant intended at all. So we have Mary Nichols. She's going to moderate. She is here to my right, to your left. She is the founder of the FuseBox radio broadcast. She is also known as DJ Fusion. She is a DJ, and she recently did some music supervision for an audio drama called Jupiter Saloon. So she's got a lot going on. She's amazing. Then we have on the far end Raquel Martin. She is a child therapist. She is also a twin. And she says that her older sister came out first, beat her by a minute, and doesn't let her forget it, of course. And then last but not least is Dr. Justin Hopkins. He is also a clinical psychologist, and his recent little quirky fact is that he has a small addiction to pad thai. He says he just can't get enough of pad thai. Which I get you. I totally get you on that. All right, so take it away. Let's give them a hand as they get started, everybody.
Well, definitely thank you for the dope intro and for being back here for DC Podfest. We're blessed to have this be the 4th year in a row folks are doing this diversity panel. And it's definitely cool to have that acknowledged, because even now with the growth of podcasting, sometimes people just are like, oh my God, not to be stereotypical, but everybody's not, a white guy or a white woman. Everything is not Serial or some other type of particular podcast. So we're definitely glad to be out here to show that there are multiple facets of people expressing themselves within this particular independent media space. And on that level, let's just start off with the first question. What had y'all decide to go ahead and start off y'all's podcast?
You want to start? Oh, cool. Okay, ladies first. Okay, so we decided to start because I work in mental health, child and adolescent mental health. I also do work with groups and families. And a lot of the work I do can be like a psychoeducation piece, just kind of just letting parents know what's normal regarding anxiety and depression in children. And a lot of that can kind of help parents just to start off with. So I felt like a lot of parents had a complaint that they didn't think many clinicians were approachable because they didn't look like them, and I was just like, I totally get that because there aren't that many of us. Justin's actually like a unicorn because there are like no black male psychologists out there. Like it took me forever to find him. So I thought it would be helpful if we could just reach out to people in a way that's on their level, just audio, and break down the iron curtain of like clinicians look like you, like will talk like you, and we can still help, and there are educated individuals who can help you.
Absolutely. I think similarly, Raquel actually came up with this idea.
You're on, you need to speak up. It's not
Okay. Yeah, so Raquel actually had the idea for the podcast, and she literally just tracked me down, just kind of cold Googled me,
textbook ex-stalker stuff, just like deep web, just finding finding people.
She just found me. I had LinkedIn messages that I hadn't seen and a
Yeah.
voicemail. And what she wanted to do is she wanted to have a podcast about mental health that featured a man of color and a woman of color, and that's not something that is out there on many other platforms. And so I was absolutely down with the project. And for me, there's a lot of stigma around mental health. We're in a moment in today's society where that stigma is declining. But if you have a mind, you do have mental health. And if you don't tend to your mental health, then you will have to tend to mental illness. And so it was really important for us to get our voices out there. There's a lot of misinformation out there about mental health. There are a lot of people who are kind of coming into the movement of mental health and are really passionate about it. But also we wanted to show our faces as well and to kind of diversify the topic and to speak to our individual communities and other communities of color and all people who are interested in mental health, just to kind of show that if you are a human and you are living and you are breathing, then mental health is an important topic for you. And so we just wanted to do more to kind of reach other communities, to normalize the topic, to show our face and say, hey, we're fairly normal people, we practice mental health, we're approachable, and there's certain topics that we can speak to because of our education to give people insight over the airwaves when they're not going to make it into our consulting rooms.
Yeah, and there's a balance too, because we also didn't want anything that was too stuffy. I listen to some podcasts, and I know I want to learn stuff every day, but we can also take it down a notch and just chill. So I also, you always get an education piece, but you also get just conversational. Just one episode is about relationships, the other episode is what is going on with Kanye West. It's just a balance, because it's really intense. We deal with trauma every single day. There's plenty of research that just being a minority, just being in the otherness aspect is stressful. So we wanted to talk about mental health, but we also wanted to be approachable, because I think a lot of times you don't go to clinicians because you think they're just going to be boring, they're not going to understand you, weird, really long-winded, and we're long-winded anyway. But we can also make it a balance, and then there's laughs in the episode too. It's just not gonna bring you down. It's not trauma every episode. You can chill out and talk about mental health and laugh at the fact that I just had a bit of a breakdown. I kind of need to chill out, have some self-care, because it's realistic. At one point you could have your mental health could be amazing on Monday, by Saturday you starting to see sounds. That's what happens. So we like to make it more approachable to understand that everyone struggles with mental health. We talk about our stuff sometimes too.
Well, that was something I did really when I sat down and I checked out the podcast. I'm just there sometimes you'll see certain topics, you almost kind of do your own stereotyping, which, I think is a big thing in terms of when people look at diversity. Even at times people look at diversity as more of a surface thing than that there's actually different opinions, trains of thought, and so forth. So y'all having that aspect as podcasters, announce what y'all's podcast name is?
Sure.
Oh, yeah.
So it's called The Black Unconscious. And
add that on, guys.
The un is in parentheses, so it speaks to both the conscious and the unconscious mind. So every human being has a conscious, things that we know about ourselves, and we have an unconscious, which is much vaster, that dictates our behaviors, our desires, our feelings on a daily basis, moment to moment. And those are things that we don't even know. Yeah. So the biggest metaphor, illustrative metaphor for this is when you see an iceberg, right? The tip of the iceberg isn't what sunk the Titanic. It was that huge mass underneath the water. Mm-hmm. That huge mass underneath is our unconscious. And so the type of therapy that we both practice, Raquel, we practice different forms of therapy.
Yeah, I'm more problem-oriented. Because I'm working with teams. Right, yeah, symptom focused. I'm really just trying to get y'all to chill. Stop cussing out your parents. Can we just be a nice person?
And you cope better.
Yeah, to cope better.
Symptom reduction. Yeah, sure.
Yeah.
And I do more of long-term personality and character change. And so the way that we came up with this, the name of it was to talk about how basically there's so many things that we don't know about ourselves, and getting to understand ourselves better, making what is unconscious more conscious, you have more options for your decision making. You're more informed about your own emotions and your thoughts. And so you go into certain situations in your life with just more access to who you are. and it allows you to make better decisions. You have more autonomy at your disposal, and so it's all about living a more fulfilling life. And so we speak to both conscious and unconscious aspects of mental health throughout our podcast, while also talking about things that are in mainstream culture. And so that's one of the things that I think is unique about what we try to create. We both give you the education, but we also we also apply to like mainstream things, like Raquel had mentioned, talking about Kanye West and his mental illness, and kind of trying to just educate and try to take away some of the misinformation about what he's going through and how he presents himself.
And when I listen to y'all's podcast, because I can listen to the academic dry stuff, and there's times that's cool, and there's times you're like, okay, I'm kind of over it. So being able to see that you could contribute that voice along with all the things people would assume that you would like at best want to have in terms of like the degrees and so forth was definitely awesome. I know on my end, I started my show because I came up during the Hot 97 hip hop era when I was in college, and I was like, I'm tired of this. This music is dry. These opinions are dry. So, I started doing my show then, and just evolved it more and more in terms of just talking about regular things in general as well as serious stuff along with music. And with that, I think one of the things that has been great about podcasting and just getting multiple voices out there is that you can be the person that you are, and that you'll actually have people who, if they're not necessarily going to listen to you in the real world, quote unquote, they'll listen to you via their phones or MP3s or whatever else. Now, we were talking earlier before this podcast, and y'all are relatively recent in the podcast space. And with that, and you touched briefly on why you decided to get involved with doing podcasting. Like, what has your experience been in regard to how people have been reacting to your podcast within the community and from outside communities? Because I think stuff like that is important in terms of how you get that feedback, and as well as how you deal with it, because podcasting in itself can sometimes give you its own stresses, much less what people from the outside would do.
I think we've gotten a really good reception with our podcast, especially since we have a pretty good balance. Like I work with children, adolescents, and families. Justin works with adults and couples. So when you kind of get every single aspect of therapy that you can get, we're also we have different perspectives on stuff, being a male and a female. Our relationship episodes brought out a lot of those perspectives regarding breakups and stuff like that. And it's also the fact that we can have a discourse and talk about it from just the normal person level, and then also the educated level. Sometimes I'll be like, all right, so what's the Dr. Hopkins what's the Dr. Hopkins answer? But also, what's the Justin answer? What's your answer just as a black man, not all educated, been in school forever? How would you answer this question? So we can kind of break it down, and you don't have to disagree and kind of argue and stuff like that. We just understand, we embrace each other's perspectives. We're both educated, Justin, and we both went to HBCUs too. HBCUs and PWIs, so we also have that perspective of coming out that amazing bubble of a HBCU, going to a primarily white institution, still being in the field of psychology and being educated, but still being oh no, that was definitely a microaggression, right there in the middle of class, around all my educated professionals. It's just, we're able to balance it. So a lot of people like that it's easy to break down. A lot of people like that they learn new facts about mental health, about resources. We also talk about the resources available for children and for family therapy. And we also plug in other podcasts that are amazing to talk about things that you can listen to. If you like listening to us, we listen to these other ones too.
Yeah, I think our feedback has been pretty good. We've been really appreciating it and surprised at how many people have reached out to us. There is not a week that goes by where we have someone shooting us a DM, just asking about maybe a resource, or if they could get some sort of opinion on something related to mental health. I think for me and Raquel, I think you would probably agree to some extent as well, that I think it's all, you can't talk about mental health from a person of color's perspective without also talking about race and oppression and systems of power.
Especially now.
You can't. There's no way to do it, right? So our first episode of season 2 was about how the freedoms of black people are often restricted because white people are often uncomfortable.
Or people in power, because it's people in power as a whole.
Right.
And that's not always just white people.
Right. There's blackness is threatening, in other words. It's perceived as threatening. So we talk about that and how how the psychology of a person of color in some ways does develop with with being conscious of the fact that there are other people who have power that you don't have, that are looking at you and judging you a particular way. We have episodes where we talked about oppression and depression 101, how feeling oppressed leads to depression. And so those topics are not going to be for everybody, right? Like, not everyone is going to hear that and say, like, you know, I really enjoy this. This is for me. I like this. And so that is a line that I think I won't say that we toe, we cross, and we cross it with an intentionality, knowing that there are people that need to get our message that otherwise would not if we were not saying it. So I work for Georgetown Law, but I also have my own private practice. And so for me, it is a business decision to talk about the kind of things that I talk about, knowing that not everyone is gonna enjoy it, or people might take it the wrong way, you know, and we're trained to, I like to say that we are literally trained to love everybody, right?
I heard that.
In session. We're trained to be receptive in session and like not judge people. I don't know about love. Love is such a strong word.
How about trained to understand it?
Yeah, we're trained to understand.
That's probably a better way to put it,
everyone.
right? But if you understand someone, I do believe that you can empathize to a degree where you have some sort of positive affection for them.
Mm-hmm.
Like if you really understand where someone's coming from, you know, and I've worked with people who have views that are not in my favor. If you know what I mean, I've worked with people, and it doesn't impede the work; it just kind of opens up the work. And so, even though like we are trained to understand everyone and to empathize with just about any walk of life, we do realize that not everyone is going to appreciate the kind of message that we share, the kind of things that we dive into, and that is something that we're mindful of. But so far, our feedback has been good. We've had people engage us. We have people of all walks of life ask like, how should they deal with people of other ethnicities and color, some tips for like how do you better relate to otherness, and so those kind of dialogues we really like.
Okay, because I know with myself, it's been a 20-year broadcasting journey for me, so I had to kind of get evolved to that point. It's good and it's frightening at the same time. I had my mom like, you could have had a grandbaby by now, so I'd have
oh my god, it always escalates with parents so quickly. Like
always,
like it's not that.
They're like, you've been married to your podcast. When can you go to one of these networking events and get a man? I'm like, oh god, let me just walk away. But I think y'all brought up some really good aspects through your podcast experience that can be applied with diversity in podcasting in general, right? Because you're going to get times where you're going to get pushback from people. Mm-hmm. Like, you'll have people who be there like, this is great, this is cool, and you have some people who are just there like, let me tell you why everything you're doing is wrong, and this, that, and the third. And I think, you know, you guys almost have like, you guys literally have the job where you're like, okay, I have to be able to absorb this feedback and try to process it and push things back out, because let's face it, we're in a world where everybody is not going to agree with you. You know, things aren't going to be on the level. That can include people who are within your own communities. Yeah. Since I know with myself and my podcast that I do, sometimes we get people very upset with some of the things we talk about, because I also have a male co-host. So we'll have relationship talks, we'll have people yell at us on both sides, where they're like, they'll yell at him for being too soft, they'll yell at me for either being too understanding for dude's opinion, or just like a female, or whatever. So they're like, all right.
And which you say, which means I'm amazing, because females are awesome.
Yeah, you always
that's how you reframe that.
Yeah, you always have like the certain things with that. And I think for people, sometimes they look at diversity in terms of like, that means that their voices aren't going to be heard, or that people are going to try to push away their voice. Like, and I think this is cool because, again, y'all literally have professional experience, and I think this could help out all of our podcasters here. Like, what are some of the best ways you guys think that people can deal with like that type of pushback and feedback, while at the same time being encouraged to still continue doing their podcast and, you know, keeping their voice and stuff out there? Because I'm of the opinion that podcasting is literally one of the few media forms left that we can all express ourselves. And there will be people who will come towards you, and you're going to deal with, you know, disagreement and conflict. Like, I have very strong political opinions and stuff on my particular side, but I want to have other people have theirs heard too, because we can't get into a dialogue of any constructive sort until we actually know where somebody stands. And when we're in the age of Trump, and I'm not going to get too political, I can rant on that all day, there's a lot of people who don't seem like they want to hear voices at all that have any nuance to them, that have any type of multifaceted viewpoints to them. Like, in other words, just with the stress of podcasting that can happen regularly, much less from feedback from other folks, like, how would you tell folks to like be like, okay, just keep on keeping on, here's some ways to kind of, calm down, de-escalate yourself while at the same token still doing what you need to do as an independent media creator?
Yeah, thank you. So I think, well, this is kind of like speaking from my personal perspective. I think it's just really, really, really important that you are clear and you're confident in your convictions about your messaging and what it is that you believe. Not so clear and confident that you are a brick wall and not taking any feedback, right? You don't want to be a complete sponge, but you also don't want to be like a brick wall and just not listen to other voices and hear some feedback, because we all can grow, we all can learn. There are all things that we can do a little bit better. But I think it's important to be able to discern, like, when is it noise and when is it constructive? Like, when is the feedback that you're getting actually antithetical to what you believe and the message that you're trying to share and the intentionality behind the things that you say on air, versus when is this coming from a place of, wow, I can actually see what they're saying. This has some validity. It's not contrasting my creed or what I believe as a creative as much as it is just kind of expanding and trying to create more nuance and trying to help me to look at something. So I think that's a hard thing to do, but self-reflection I think is key here. And just thinking about like what it is that you're trying to deliver, who it is that's delivering the feedback, how they're delivering the feedback, and if it strikes you as something that's just completely against your core, or if it's something that you feel like could actually expand your work and make you a better podcaster.
Yes, that's a good clinician. So I'm not going to do a clinician answer. So I'm going to do a normal answer. So that's a good clinician answer. So one, it depends on what your podcast is about, because certain things are just facts. So like a lot of the stuff that we talk about research studies that have been done with minorities. We talk about past and present things. Like I work at Hopkins, so Hopkins stuff comes up all the time. So certain things are just published facts. So if you have someone who's kind of negating facts, it's kind of like, oh, okay, well, I mean, the citation is here though. So I'm not really going to argue with that. And also, I just come from a perspective just with dealing with mental health and talking to a lot of people about mental health. Some stuff you just gotta be like, who cares? Like, I don't, like, if you're not gonna be productive, if you're gonna just attack me, I don't know you. We're not going to coffee after this. Like, some people, you get more out of arguments sometimes, right? Like, some people just want someone to engage with them. So from a psych perspective, I always think of, and the worst thing about being a clinician is that you really can't get mad at anyone, because you always think there's like, oh, well, he's upset, he probably has some childhood trauma, or oh, something happened, they probably just broke up. So you can't really be upset. It's too understanding.
Kind of like, it's coming from another place.
It's exhausting.
There's always more.
It's so annoying. So most of the time, I'm just like, oh, well, this is terrible. They wrote this terrible comment. Oh my gosh, this is probably the only amount of engagement they had today was to start an argument. They're probably miserable. So, or like, oh, this is the only way they know how to connect with people. They probably don't understand like that they're not being receptive, so poor them for calling me trash. Like, there's just no way to just be angry, because everyone has a reason why they're acting that way. Some people, for real, that the only engagement they have are like their YouTube comments, and the only time they're gonna get a response is not when you say they're amazing, it's when you say they suck. So some people just, that's the only way they get to reach out to people. So I'm just like, oh, poor you. I'm so sorry you think I suck. I think I'm amazing. And I'm not gonna like engage with it, but also realizing like what you're putting out is, some things are facts, some things are your opinion. You're entitled to your opinion. Everyone doesn't have to agree with it. The same way we disagree, there's a difference between a disagreement and an argument. Like, I'm not gonna argue with you. If you don't agree with me, okay, good to know. I'm not gonna take that home with me in my whole life. Like, you're not paying my bills, so it's not like the end of the world. We're still gonna come out next week with another opinion you probably don't want to hear. Tune in, it'll be awesome.
Yeah, I'm about to say that's pretty much my school of things.
Yeah.
There's gonna be times where it's like, okay, maybe the audio wasn't this way, or wow, that was something that we didn't know, so we can like, update that in a future show. Mm-hmm. But there's gonna be definitely the people, especially in the social media age, who are just gonna be mad just to be mad.
Yeah, some people just mad.
And you just gotta be there like, you know what, okay, well, I don't like whatever. Well, you gave me a download for my stats, so thank you, I appreciate that.
Right.
Have a good day.
Like Raquel was saying, like, I do think like being psychologists, like, yeah, you do tell yourself like empathic stories.
It's exhausting.
But I like of reasons why like people do some of the things that they do, because when you get to know someone well enough, you know there's something softer behind an action. But at the same time, I reserve the right to be angry and to not let you like take up space in my mind. Because And I feel like that is important, actually, that you can sometimes be angry and just decide, like, this is not for me. I don't have to listen to this or take it in. And again, like, if it's something about, like, your feed, like the audio, or technically, like, how things are being heard or received. Like, we have people sometimes say, like, hey, actually, this episode was this number. Thank you so much for telling me that. I really appreciate it. Let me fix that right away.
Yeah, like, so somebody said, like, oh, your gains in the beginning suck. I was like, cool. How do we fix that? And then they told us how to fix it. So we could have been like, you suck. But they were just like, okay, well, I mean, we just started this, so can you tell us how to fix it? And then we fixed it. So it's like, cool. Is there any way to correct it?
Yes, I think sometimes we can get caught up in terms of more the negative side of things than the good that is being done. Because there are times we'll get some stuff, I'm just here like, well, dang, I just wasted my whole damn week doing this thing. People get like another bit of feedback where it's just there like, thank you for having this, or talking about this, or playing this, or it just like kept me focused during the 9 to 5 when it was crazy or whatever. We're just like, okay, well, word, that's cool. And I think for multiple people of different types of backgrounds and audiences, sometimes we need to embrace that positive a bit more than the other side.
Yeah, that's the biggest focus on mental health. And a lot of times, like, even when I've been working with patients with anxiety, so with anxiety or depression, it's very easy to key onto like your negative thoughts, but you really shouldn't believe every single thing you think. I'm pretty sure we all think some pretty random stuff that doesn't make it accurate. They're called maladaptive cognitions. So when individuals have like mental health disorders, you have the propensity to focus on the negative thoughts. But it's like, well, what if we try to, and it takes time to like challenge those thoughts to be like, how accurate is this? How helpful is this? Has this happened before? If this does happen, like, okay, so how do I deal with it? And those are issues with mental health. Those are coping skills that you can learn every single day. But you can also try to focus on the good thoughts. Like some people have, like, it's called a negative attribution bias. So you have like 10 positives, you get 1 negative, and then you just ruminate on those negatives forever. Everybody does that, but it really works. It really helps with coping skills, or to see a clinician, or even just to read up on how to challenge those thoughts. And with me, when crazy stuff comes up, I'm like, is this helpful? Is it true? If the worst case scenario happens, like, how am I going to handle it? Like, we've all survived our worst days. So, I mean, you can figure out how you're going to handle it, but the automatic thoughts just come in and no one really challenges them. You just hear that something and you just think you're going to be awful, and then you just accept that. Instead of just thinking like, well, am I really going to be awful? It's like when you think in extremes, nothing is always or nothing is ever, or never. Like the only thing I am always is like black. Like that's it. Like that's the only thing I legit always am. So I can't always be terrible. Also can't always be amazing. Like it's just, there's real dangers in speaking in extremes. You're never always something or never something. There's just a balance.
Just to piggyback on that, not only do you not have to believe everything that you think, and you kind of like hinted at this, not everything you think is going to be 100% true and accurate, because a lot of our thoughts are completely automatic. We don't voluntarily think everything.
Yeah, I can think I'm Beyonce. I'm not Beyonce. You know, like you can think like, oh, I can sing so great, and then it's like, no, that's a no.
So we have thoughts all the time that aren't actually 100% true, but they happen so automatically that they're stripped from the context in which the thought was based in. And so you lack some of the information to fill in the thought. So you just have a thought like, say, like, I'm not going to do as well. It's like, well, that's not the whole story. First, you don't know that because you're telling the future. Secondly, maybe you've done well in the past. So how about I don't know how I'm going to do, but I've done well in the past. Right? Like but we have thoughts all the time that are like not really complete, and they're stripped from their context. And so these are kind of things that we end up talking about, I think. I'm not sure how we got onto this, but this is
I know, we're really long-winded, man. It's I'm about to say, our episodes are legit only 45 minutes, though.
I'm about to say, you're in the podcasting world. Everybody is going to be talkative along with it. That's part of the cool.
Sometimes go to an hour.
Because Justin doesn't bring it on down.
Now, we can end up talking for quite some time because A, we're podcasters, and B, it's a really good combo, but we're going to be end up getting into the munch mode and everything, so we want to be able to open up the floor a little bit to some questions. And I think one of the things that we should touch base on really quickly before we go on ahead and do that is for people who want to start off a podcast right now, because DC Podfest does have a lot of people who might be either interested in the podcast, they might have recorded their first 1 or 2, and they might be nervous about, well, dang, dude, all these folks sound like they've been doing it forever and they're totally cool and they're totally straight, they have no problem, which is a falsehood. Don't let all of our confidence precede you. It came from experience and whatnot. What would be some of the biggest encouragements that you would give for people to get into and to continue doing podcasting? Because the tech side is cool. We all know there's all these servers and stuff, but like, what's like that thing that should keep people on the up and up in terms of continuing doing a podcast and having their voices go on ahead and be heard? Because ultimately, that is the thing about this medium, is having diversity of not just people and their backgrounds, but diversity of content.
I feel like it's just like Nike, like just do it. Like you really need your voices out there. I think that especially with marginalized or minority populations, our voices are not out there. And as someone who works with children or works with adolescents, like representation really, really matters when it comes to development of anyone getting into a career system. Like think about how many people think that they can be like the president now just because they saw a black man, or that picture of the little boy who just wanted to know if Barack Obama's hair felt like his. Like I feel like there need to be more voices out here, diversity wise, like racial diversity and even education diversity. Like we're come from an education aspect, but educated aspect, most of the stuff we say is just random like conversation about stuff. Or also just like with sexual orientation, like there needs to be more voices out there because a lot of people don't feel connected. Like when I'm working with patients, a lot of people feel like no one understands them. And I'll have like 10 patients and they're all going through the same thing and I'm like, man, I wish I could introduce you. That's unethical though. But like it's just so many people feel isolated and alone. Like that's the issue. And I think there's a lot of resources. There's a podcast group, and this is only for women, I'm sorry. Well, not sorry, but like it's Women of Color podcast group, and it's amazing. Like I started off there and you just post a question and they answer everything with resources, with websites. And it started because there was that Spotify Sound Up boot camp that you have like 100,000 applicants for 8 positions, and then the women were like, oh, so what are we gonna do about this? We're gonna start a group and we're gonna do what we wanna do about this because we get stuff done. And it's amazing. Like review swaps, finding co-hosts, finding speakers. There are resources for monetizing. There are like weekly meetups, and we're all across the country, and there's some international members too. So it's like just find the resources and realize like there's a lot of people starting off. We've only been doing it for 5 months.
Yeah, that's right.
And there's a lot of resources out there, so just look, because you can start off with like microphones. You can start off with just recording on your phone and using your earbuds that came with your phone and editing in all the free software like Audacity. Like it doesn't take that much, but your voices should get out there because there's someone who can identify it with it.
Absolutely. And I'll just say really quickly that feel nervous, feel scared, feel anxious, and do it anyway. Like lean into it, right? The more that you avoid, the harder it will become to start. Literally, that's what stokes stress and anxiety is, avoidance. And the longer you avoid, you know it's something you want to do, you feel like you have like something burning inside you that you want to get out. It's scary. Lean into it and do it anyway. There is somebody who needs to hear what you have to say. There's somebody like you that you don't know that needs to hear it. And the other thing is that because it is web-based, right? Like it stays there, and then people use it as a reference and come back to it. Like a lot of our old episodes obviously have the highest number of downloads. I'm sure this works the same for everybody because people go back and look at it, right? So if you think about it, if you really think about it, like if you were to kind of transition that into the real world, your stats via web downloads, and just think about what would it have been like to like just speak to a room of 50 people, a room of 100 people, a room of 200, 300, 400, like that's a big deal. So someone is here, like there are large numbers of people that will inevitably hear your voice as you continue to grow. So I would just say, feel the stress, lean into it, do it anyway. If you have a voice, and you're passionate about something, there's someone that needs to relate to you on that passion.
And if you don't want to hear the comments, turn off the comments. You can turn off the comments on everything. You can turn off the comments on YouTube. You can turn off the comments on Instagram. It's like just turn off the comments and just put your stuff out there.
The mute button is so lovely on social media some days. Where you just like, and I don't gotta hear from you.
It's your podcast. You're the voice that matters. Mute them if you're worried that there's going to be a problem.
And I definitely will agree with that. I think ultimately, in terms of this field, we're still growing. There's still a lot that's going on, and we can all literally go ahead and be a part of that growth. Like, I came up during the period where it was just like, I had to learn what an RSS feed is. Y'all don't got to do that no more, We can listen to podcasts via the phone and all other types of ways. And you can always give it a try. I mean, I know a lot of these podcast servers now literally do a free trial. Try this thing out for a little bit, see where it goes. You can always climb up if that's what you want to do. And if worst comes to worst, it's not your thing. It might be somebody else's thing. And stuff can go ahead and grow and move on. So I think ultimately, with podcasting, we're going to get diversity with the more people who want to get in there and just literally have their voices to be heard. Like, we're all black folks on this podcast, but we all don't represent all of Black America. The few, white folks who are there don't represent all of white America, so forth and so on. When you have more facets of people's personalities and things come together. That's when we're going to be able to hear more voices and, learn more about each other. And in the best way, be able to have this thing grow and, hopefully be able to grow within that on our own. And yeah, I'm smelling this delicious food going on. I'm not going to block people from that soon. But I wish we could get into things more, but definitely feel free to talk to us. We're all going to be out here throughout the day here at DC Podfest. I definitely thank Jennifer Crawford and all the lovely staff for having us again to be here. And we got a few minutes to have some questions being asked if we were able to touch base on certain things. And I see some hands up already, which is dope.
Okay. While I go back there, I just wanted to add 2 cents too. So I'm about to launch a Spanish show. So if any of you speak other languages, we can lift that up too. I know not all of my Spanish-speaking brothers and sisters understand even what a podcast is yet. It hasn't gotten out everywhere, but they will. If they could get on YouTube, they can learn how to listen to the radio online. You know what I mean? So I'm getting it out there, and so just let's keep in touch with each other and find ways to lift up more voices all over the world.
Hi, my name is Danielle Hawk, and I'm the host of When Women Lead Change. It's a podcast for women in organizations that are leading large-scale change efforts, transformations. And so my question actually is related to the Spotify contest. I submitted my name for that. And so what was interesting about it is that because I knew so little about the podcasting field, I didn't understand there were these I don't want to call them barriers, but there is that funding part of it and sponsorship that is slightly or a little skewed toward one audience, and so, or type of podcast host. I guess I want to hear your opinions or thoughts about that, kind of like that business side of it, if that makes sense.
That makes sense.
I think so, yeah. I can say from my experience, usually if you hear some of these podcasts, you hear Blue Apron and all that type of stuff, right? How do those folks get to it? Get Talkspace, get Squarespace, etc. I think from my experience, a lot of stuff in terms of sponsorship, if you are aiming for that in business-wise, get a few episodes under your belt first, so you'll be able to show folks, how you're doing, and that you have I think it's almost more of a dedicated audience thing than having tons of numbers at the beginning, because people want to know that you have a consistent amount of people who check you out and do that. Now, if you end up having 1 million listeners plus that's great, that's awesome, but do that first, and then I would almost say go more local for sponsors or for more niche things. If your podcast hits up certain things, your podcast would be, I think, almost more in the business lane. Contact some organizations who are about that. I would say even places Spaces, here right now, who does office space rentals and things, and other folks, and then grow from there. Because once you get that core amount of people and you're able to pull up those stats and everything else comes into play. And then if you just want to get your listeners to support, Patreon is cool, the occasional PayPal is cool, but there's people who at times I'm just there wow, my car broke down, how am I going to pay for this? Next thing I know, I got a PayPal donation from somebody who's I checked out your show, I dug it, here to spare $50.
We ain't get that,
And I think there's also the aspect too of with what you do. If you already have a business that's happening with that, talk about that you do a podcast as well. There are going to be people who want to, hop on board with that aspect as well. It's all going to be a growing process, but I would think to start from that core, and everything's going to grow and expand from there.
Yeah, I'd also say you can also start by shopping yourself around to other organizations, stuff like that. So creating a media kit if you don't already have one. Adobe Spark is a great way to do that. And we got some things by just reaching out to people. Also, we just started, so I'm kind of from the aspect of it depends on what your goal is, but I really just like the possibility of reaching out to minorities and helping them understand you're not alone, and you can reach out to clinicians and stuff like that. So maybe one day we'll be coming to the business side of it, but just being clinicians, we're at the point where we really just getting our voice out there, and we really having individuals be receptive to anxiety, depression, and getting some type of education piece. So we probably gonna be broke for a minute. We're not gonna make any money.
Have you thought about alliances or partnerships or relationships with podcasters that don't look like you, but somehow can broaden your audience?
No.
Right. Right. So that's
not yet. Not yet. We're really trying to establish our brand, and I kind of feel like we're still figuring out who we are.
Okay.
And I just bringing somebody else in there. And also just because we are more the minority aspect, and this is just like a personal thing. I'm really about like the whole bringing up with like a black-owned aspect of it. I really like the fact that we will be able to control our own dialogue.
No, I'm not talking about someone coming in and taking or being a part of your like content and development. I'm just talking about how do you get your message to audiences that may not look like you.
Oh yeah, we're on like everything.
So that's what I was just.
Yeah, everyone can tune in. I mean, we're on like Stitcher, Spotify, Radiotopia, all that. One of our first questions was from a white male who wanted to know how does he connect more with diverse audience and stuff like that. So they can always tune in, and like we're not saying like just just Black Pride is an anti-white. We're not saying that way. We're always receptive. We always voice things in the concern of like we are minorities, but also like we shouldn't be the only ones listening to this because we really want everyone to understand the daily struggles we go through when we have microaggressions, the daily struggles we go through when you made a new friend and you're afraid of like a racial comment and how to respond, or everything that we go through every single day being a minority. It's like the fear of like having a black guy with a hoodie. Justin had a hoodie on and like a Scully the other day, and I was scared out of my mind when he came to record. I was like, "What is wrong with you?"
She's like scared for my safety.
For his safety, and like we opened up with that. I was like, "This man." Like, and it doesn't matter if you're educated professional. Like, just being able to talk about like these are general fears. Like, respectability politics are not a thing. So everyone should listen to it. It shouldn't just be minorities. We want to be understood by everyone. This is a dialogue from not just minority or black professionals, educated professionals who's still concerned that my co-host is gonna have an issue walking down the street in a Scully and it's still a problem. But in like a hat and a hoodie, it scared the crap out of me, y'all. I was like, what are you doing?
I know you can't really assume who is checking you out.
No,
and I think that's like really an interesting thing because politically we are very on the left on my show, but we DJ'd for the Marine Corps Marathon for the past 5 years. And they research y'all and check you out. Like people aren't playing games when they do certain stuff. We work with DC State Fair and do DJing for a certain period of time. We'll have those people that are like, y'all are very opinionated, but you do great stuff. So we would like for you to be down. So I would say don't necessarily have that facet, get you terribly worried, because I think ultimately when you have the people who you are meant to work with, and I think that's a big thing. The people who you're meant to work with are going to check you out, regardless of their background, be there like, this looks great, can we talk a bit? And then ultimately you're going to check them out and see what they're about and decide if the exchange is worth the while in terms of money, promotion, etc. That's not having you water down what you're trying to do or sell out, so.
Yeah. Well, I'm really grateful for you on this particular question because you're a little bit further along than us in like reaching diverse audiences. But we are, I think where we are with it is trying to figure out like what other spaces would welcome us rather than who we should welcome. Like what other spaces should welcome us and how we can market to them. And so we're thinking about like organizations that would be open to have us, college campuses that would appreciate our message. So that's kind of been our approach to growing and expanding and getting our word out to multiple communities and multiple audiences.
Yeah, because you really just, as clinicians, really just want to help. Like, you really just want to get the info out there. So anyone who will have us, we're just receptive to that. As long as they're not trying to dilute our stuff, though. Like, it's going to be Black Pride either way.
Please don't dilute the individual or group that you are. I think that's going to be a big thing in regard to keeping diversity real beyond that. Oh, here's some black people. It's like, no, here's some black people who believe A, B, C, D, E,
yeah, there's plenty of black people don't believe in the same stuff that we believe in. We disagree all the time. Yeah.
I mean, co-hosts can disagree with themselves. So,
absolutely.
I've yelled at my co-host plenty of times. We always look back, and then we had Thanksgiving dinner with my mom afterwards.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah, Raquel yells at me about once in a while. So.
Often.
Another little comment I want to chime in. You were talking about that Women of Color group. Yes. There's also a Facebook group called She Podcasts for women podcasters, and I found it to be a nice group to just also ask my questions in, and a community of women who all believe in each other. And then locally, we have a DC podcaster community Facebook group, and we occasionally have meetups and things like that. So again, this is a resource for diversifying the people in our own podcasting community and learning from each other that way too. So I want to encourage you to connect with those folks too.
Yes, and
is that about it?
Just I look at the time now because I don't want to run over y'all's schedule. We are at 12:13, so unless folks want to put in like maybe one extra question before it's time to serve food.
Okay.
So I love this discussion. Podcasting has changed my life. I think the more people we get into podcasting is great. I'm a fan. I'll be listening to your show now. I actually really enjoy this dialogue. But I'm curious.
What's up? We met up in...
I'm curious beyond just minority as a podcaster. When you're minority listeners, what's the roadblock for minority listeners sharing your podcast with other minorities? Are they confused on what podcasting is? Is it the app? Is it they don't know enough podcasts that they would listen to? What's the response you get when you say, hey, I'm doing a podcast, you should listen to it? I'm curious what that response is, because that would help someone like me educating people on the power of podcasting.
I feel like everybody knows about it because almost everyone I know listens to The Read, and that's a podcast. So it's really, and I explain it to my parents. It's like it's the same as that AM station you listen to all the time, but interesting. So just like just a real, because they listen to some crazy boring stuff. So just like a 40-minute conversation about a certain topic. And when I'm introducing it to them, I introduce like the ones that I listen to a lot, like The Read or like Ear Hustle, which is an amazing podcast with the men of like San Quentin prison and stuff like that. So I introduce them to like, oh, you ever want to hear like a narrative? This is a narrative from individuals talking about a certain topic. There's a lot of storytelling ones, so that gets a lot of people into it. It's something like Serial and stuff like that. So I kind of just introduced it as like it's just a TV show where you're not seeing people. And a lot of podcasts are recorded video now, like they're on YouTube too. So I just introduced it as like it's just a dialogue about something. Like the radio station is pretty awful lately. So like, how about you learn something while you go on your commute? I often introduce it as a commute thing. Most of them are like 30 to 45 minutes and everyone's in traffic, especially in this area. So like you can be a little bit more productive. It's the same thing as like doing an Audible. Everybody likes Audible lately, like audiobooks. So it's just something to do on your commute and learn something new and hear different, what are they called? Dialogues from people that you probably would never meet, because there's a lot of international ones, like you mentioned, different languages, and these are people that you may never meet in real life. Like I'm never going to meet them in the San Quentin prison, but like hearing their stories is amazing and how they got there. So you get to have diversity, and if you don't have time to read a book, you can listen to these different aspects. It's the same thing to me.
Yeah. I think just to say really quickly, most people are familiar with podcasting as a whole, but they may not necessarily know how to access different platforms. So we strategically like try to put our content on the platforms that we know people use a lot. So like iTunes, Spotify, Stitcher, Google Play, iHeartRadio, like all of those different ones. So the biggest barrier, I think, is just people having the platform where your podcast where they can access your podcast.
Especially if you're an Android user.
Yeah.
Right.
that was a subliminal shot at me.
I didn't even know. I was like, can you find us on your phone? You don't have iTunes podcast on your phone? No, because it's an Android.
I just want to say Android bullying is real.
I'm sitting here getting insulted in the corner when people are talking about Android.
I'm getting threatened to get kicked out of group chats because of how
that green bubble is disgusting. Yeah. So there's also I think you can Google it, but you also have to make sure your podcast is Android friendly, because some of them aren't. So some of them, some people don't have iTunes because they don't have iTunes, so they'll use Overcast or something like that, and that submission process is easy. But a lot of people have Apple Podcasts. You also have to make sure your podcast is Android friendly for those like 10 people who have an Android.
I would definitely say entry point wise, it's a lot easier now than before in terms of recommending different podcasts. Like back in the day, it was just like I had to give people like about 5 steps, and people ain't trying to go for no 5 steps in terms of all the other life stuff that they have. I just think it depends on the individual. Like luckily there's so much that's out there now. Like somebody's into like true crime, I can recommend a whole bunch of true crime stuff. Like I know the Aaron Hernandez series. It's out there. It's crazy right now. Yeah. They have that, and the Ray Caruth one is also like if people put people on that, like sports-wise, The Read, of course.
There's a lot of good sports podcasts too for guys. So like I feel like most of the people who listen to them are women, but I actually got my husband to listen to some just by doing like, oh, there are people talking about the game that you watched and the show that you watched about the game you just watched.
Lots of good live music ones out there right now. Like I felt like the oldest person in the world when Smith and Wesson was on Tiny Desk on NPR about a month or two ago. I was still like, wow, I am touching 40 right around the corner. That's lovely. But I would say do that point, because if people even hear one episode that they're interested in a particular thing, they're going to start delving into other stuff. And luckily, things like Spotify have embraced a lot of people now, or whatever else. You'll get all those extra side recommendations. And then I think for people might still be on the cusp of, I heard a podcast, but I'm not necessarily thinking about it as something that I might be interested in, much less involved in. When you see that there's more stuff out there, I just think that's an extra encouragement for people to at least go ahead and give it a try. So I would definitely do that. There's more and more programs out now. Like we talk about Spotify Boot Camp. Yeah. There's a lot more programs that are happening right now in terms of getting people working with folks who either have audio experience or not. Like I was a part of Podcation with the Jupiter Saloon project, and I just applied for that because I got heard about it through a newsletter. And I met people who I would have met who worked for like NPR or The Ringer. So we all like worked together for a weekend, making up a whole crazy project. Now that's a whole other thing people got under their belts. So yeah, I would say put the stuff out there and be there like, you can do this too, because whether they like something or they're just like, this is horrible. Well, you think this is horrible? Try something new. Next thing you know, we got a new podcast out there that somebody else who never heard this before can get involved in.
Yeah, or if they said they had a podcast and they were like, oh, I can't find anything that I'd be interested in. Then that shows that there's a gap in the whole podcast aspect, and you can just say that. There's so many different categories. To be like, all right, so what do you watch on TV? I can find you a podcast that does the same thing, that's a different aspect of it. Or if they can't find anything, be like, why don't you just start a podcast about it since there's no one there to do it?
Like there's literally botany podcasts out. Botany. I was there like, who will listen to that? Apparently mad people who are into botany. So you found a place.
On Dave Jackson's show, I remember he said that somebody put on Facebook, what are your hobbies? And everybody just mentioned what their hobbies were. And every time they had a hobby, they were like, here's a podcast for you. Here's a podcast for you. Whether it's playing clarinet or this or that. So you guys, let's give Mary, Justin, and Raquel a hand. Thank you so much for being here. We'll see you after lunch back in this space. Thanks, everybody.
You can listen to the FuseBox radio broadcast via iTunes, Stitcher, TuneIn Radio, Podcast Addict, and your other favorite podcast players. Check out the FuseBox Radio's official website for our latest episodes, events, and more at FuseBoxRadioOnline.com. You can also visit us on Facebook at Facebook.com/FuseBox Radio Show, Twitter at Twitter.com/FuseBox Radio, and Instagram at Instagram.com/FuseBox Radio. Feel free to contact us at FuseBoxRadio@gmail.com to submit music for airplay consideration,